Hello, this is Zakhar, and today I'll be discussing causes of climate change and what we are doing to fix it. As you can see, here I have some images of climate change and global warming, and I'll discuss later in the video, what it is, what we're doing to fix it, as mentioned by the title, and also the connection to, chip design, computer architecture, engineering, that kind of stuff, because obviously that's the topic that I usually um, dive into in my channel. Okay, so starting off with, well, what is climate change? Okay, as you can see, here's an image of ice melting in the Arctic. Basically, climate change is when in areas where it's really cold, like the like the Arctic and Antarctica, um, when essentially the ice melts, and because of that, there's global warming, and because of that, temperatures change, and as a result, the environment changes in different ways. And we'll discuss more later in the video. So, this is like a generalization of what most people think of when they hear climate change. So, some chemistry knowledge. Here I have a picture on the screen of the chemical formula for CO2, for carbon dioxide. And that's a key thing in climate change. It helps increase the amount of climate change. So a lot of people think that planes are a big deal with climate change, impacting climate change a lot, because they emit a lot of carbon dioxide. As you can see by the gas that's being emitted, that is carbon dioxide, and that is true. That is very true. Besides just planes, cars are also a big contributor to um, increased climate change. Also, something that changes the climate a lot is AI, specifically the data centers that help make and power AI. We'll discuss more later in the video, specifically on the next slide, but to summarize, well, not summarize, but to introduce, AI has the data centers, right? And those data centers, to make the AI and to keep it, sustain it, they require a lot of water, and all that water is, it contributes to climate change in the long run, and we'll discuss how in the next slide. So now I'll discuss the impact that AI has on aquatic life. So basically, what's the connection between climate change and aquatic life? So basically, the way it works, as discussed in the previous slide, the AI data centers specifically take up a lot of water to help design and sustain, keep the AI chips essentially. That process takes up a lot of heat, and because of that, it also takes up a lot of energy, and it requires an effective cooling method. And for AI, it's complex. The most effective method for AI is to use water as a cooling solution. You see, AI though requires a lot of water to be cooled, and that in the long run hurts the aquatic life. And when the aquatic life is hurt, then this impacts the climate in a negative way. Okay, because it leads to aquatic life to decrease eventually. So that's some bio there. So yeah, here it mentions aquatic life is hurt by the loss of water used to train AI. And as a result, as I mentioned before, aquatic life is decreased. So here are some images. Now, it is important to note that AI isn't always bad for climate change. So that's the negative side of AI and climate change. But the positive side is that AI can also be, in a way, helpful to the environment and helpful in reducing climate change, because it can, for example, help detect the amount of pollution and where pollution is in, for example, in the ocean, in rivers, lakes, stuff like that. You know, without AI, it would be a lot harder to do this. But with AI, it's a lot faster and easier, and this in return helps reduce the amount of climate change. Here's another example of how AI takes up water, though. That's an example of the data centers here, as you can see. So yeah, that's the negative side. So AI can have a negative side, but it can also have a positive side to the climate change issue. So now I'll discuss AI and its impact on the climate. So yeah, again, here's the negative side, right? On the right side of the screen, that's the negative side. Essentially, it says that AI takes up a lot of water, as discussed. And as you can see here, the top consumers of water. So there's Nvidia here in green. This one's some other company. And you got Microsoft and Google in there. You got Meta and Apple as well. So all these companies take up a lot of water to, you know, keep and sustain AI. So that impacts the climate negatively, as discussed. But on the other hand, you see, AI can also help detect new batteries and new mixtures for batteries that are alternatives to lithium. Because as you know, well, I might have to introduce this real quick. Lithium mining is also a key contributor to climate change. Lithium mining is harmful to the environment, right? But AI can find alternatives to this and other possible solutions, mixtures for batteries, and specifically within the field of battery design, and help make better batteries, more green batteries, essentially, that are safer and better for the environment. So now there's the question: does AI help reduce or make climate change worse? This is obviously an opinionated question. There are different perspectives of it. I'll stay in the middle. I'll say it's a little of both. It can have some positives, it can have some negatives. It's an ongoing, you could say it's an ongoing issue if you look at it from a negative perspective, or you can say it's potential solution even to the climate change issue because it can possibly help find some ways to reduce climate change, such as making finding new, as we discussed earlier in the video, like um, new battery mixtures and new ways to design and make batteries, and also help in decreasing pollution by finding where pollution is in the ocean, stuff like that. So here's also an example of AI being helpful in solving climate change. Here it mentions China is deploying underwater AI data centers that use natural ocean cooling to cut energy use and reduce fish water demand dramatically. That right there is another example of how AI can be um, useful to the environment and as a result also help, um, in this case specifically, increase aquatic life, keep the fish water to live essentially, and also in return decrease climate change. So yeah, that's that. It's an ongoing issue. In this video, I discussed the big stuff about it, essentially, majority of it, I would say. So that's all for the video. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video.